Welcome to Musings from Arledge. I have a couple of special guests today I'm very excited about. You're going to recognize both of them. Let's start with age before beauty. I have Kennedy Polamalu. Some of you may have remembered him as Kennedy Pola from his days at USC. A fullback in the 80s, played from 1982 to 1985, including on that 1984 Rose Bowl winning team at one of the first Rose Bowl winning team I ever watched at USC. Longtime coach, both at college and the NFL, running backs, offensive coordinator at both USC and UCLA. Running backs coach for the Minnesota Vikings for a number of years, and now with the I was going to say Oakland Raiders, but it's not Oakland Raiders, Las Vegas Raiders. So, welcome Kennedy to the show. Nice to have you.
Thank you, Chris.
And his nephew, Isaiah Pola-Mao. Most of you will remember Isaiah because he was at SC just a few years ago. Team captain, safety. All-conference player, and now a safety for the Raiders, and I think we'll have some interesting insight on recent USC football and maybe where we're headed. So Isaiah, great to have you too.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me, Chris.
Okay, so let's start with this. I'm curious because obviously the two of you are related, and also related to Troy Polamalu, in case people didn't know that. And it seems that these days you can't turn on a major college football game or an NFL game without seeing lots of Polynesian football players, and which no longer surprises us, but it's a relatively small population with a huge number of very successful football players. I want to start there. Guys, why are Polynesian players so dominant in college football and the NFL? What's going on?
I'll give it to Isaiah first.
I think we just play with, a lot of love and a lot of passion with the game. And I think we just take our advantage of all the opportunities that, football has given us. It's taken us to many places that without it, not many are able to reach. I mean, I think we understand the opportunities and we just play with a lot of passion and love it.
Yeah. Kennedy, what do you think? You have anything to add on that?
Yeah, it all starts with respect. Respect and the humility that comes with the respect. Very unselfish culture. We're always going to bow and allow others to go, knowing that we can get that job done for them, but we're going to let them try, and we're going to support. Loyalty, very loyal, and it's all part of our culture. If you ever go to a funeral, Isaiah will tell you this, a wedding, it doesn't matter where you are as an NFL player or a coach, you're going to be back there working. You're going to be back there serving the elders that were before you. You're going to serve the older generation that has gone before you, even though they were not a college graduate or an NFL, but they are part of our culture that we pay that respect to, because that's the way the Polynesian culture is. No matter if you're Samoan, Tongan, Fijian, all that Polynesian culture is all about the elders. It's about respect and serving. And that's what a football player is that selfless about that respect. And if you see somebody hurting that family member or someone else, you're gonna speak up. And then when they speak up with passion. They bring it, and they're going to be there for you. Loyalty, and most of all, the love that comes with it. And when you love something, it's hard to give it up.
Yeah. So I'm curious. You mentioned in your answer that that in the Polynesian culture, there's this respect for tradition and those who have come before you. I'm curious if that tradition of having great Polynesian players at USC, because I mean, some of the giants of the game. Obviously, your relative Troy, Junior Seau, one of the all-time greats. All the way till recent days, with a lot of Polynesian players in USC's team this year. Thule was an All-American last year. I'm wondering, Isaiah, does that have an impact on you when you're trying to figure out where you want to go play football? Does USC's history of having so many successful Polynesian players, does that factor in for you?
Absolutely. I think USC is just, when Polynesian players, they think about where they want to go, USC is at the top of the list just because of, the names that you mentioned, Junior Seau, Troy Polamalu, Lofada Tupu, all those guys, you have to pay your respects to them. And, USC is it's really just a destination you want to be at.
Yeah.
And what's fun for me, and even the one thing about we try to keep in our culture is not about the high ranking, because there's a Matai in the family, there's a high chief in our village, all those that they make the sacrifice. And whenever there's a funeral, the Matai and the family members put everything together to represent your family. I went to USC because of that, because of Mosi Tatupu. And people don't realize this, and this is why I'm glad that I have a family member speaking with you, and I know Troy will eventually speak with you about this as well, is Arthur Hemingway. Arthur Hemingway was one of the best fullback running backs in the state of California. And he comes to USC during John Robinson heyday, and he's going to be the next Mosi Tatupu fullback there. And he gets struck crossing the street and paralyzed and everything else. And Isaiah doesn't know, but Arthur Hemingway is not a Samoan name, but he was one of the best Samoan running backs, high school and talent. I still remember Anthony Munoz, and I think it was Brad Buddy that held him out of his wheelchair in the Coliseum, because that was their classmate. And USC, over the years, took care of his medical bills, took care of his education. I know Arthur went on and got his master and continued his education, even though he didn't play one snap in the Coliseum with his teammates. But the Trojan family, I still remember that. The other one was Michael Allo. Michael Allo was the National Offensive Player of the Year, fullback. And if you go back and talk to people about Michael Allo at Banning High School, I mean, he was just a rock. He was he was the next Arthur Hemingway. And then he, hurt his neck and he couldn't play football again. But USC continued to reach out and help him and try to help all, as we go on. And that's what Dainga, the family word for Samoans, is SC, USC. To me, that's what it was about. It was about family. So I was very proud that I got to go to USC, and then Troy got to go to USC, and then Isaiah got to go to USC. That's 3 generations of, a family that's from Manua, Samoa, and it just keeps growing.
Yeah. So let me ask you too about it. It seems to me, I'm not Polynesian. You guys probably figured that out, but based on my name, but I'm curious about something else, because it seems to me that, and Isaiah mentioned this, Polynesian players play with a lot of passion. Of course, there are people of all backgrounds that play with passion, but play with a lot of passion. But it also seems that there is a cultural, maybe, insistence on humility too. And so I mentioned, like, you guys played at the highest levels. Kennedy, you're coaching at the highest level. Some of the names we've mentioned, whether it's Thule or Troy or Junior, these guys who were, All-Americans, in some cases NFL Hall of Famers, they played with passion. But then when you listen to them talk, there's a humility that comes out of that. And I don't know if that's a Polynesian thing. I don't know if it's just a personality thing with those particular guys, but I'm wondering if there's like a cultural component to that.
Isaiah, you take it.
Yeah, I think that's just the island boy in us. I think it's just how we're raised, honestly. You know, even when we're young, we're always taught to just, be humble and always praise the Lord and give it up to God because it's not us doing it. It's gifts from him that allowing us to do this stuff. So when it comes down to it, I think that's a big part of it in us being just the humble person and always, and like my uncle said, is all about the respect and all about the serving others. So we're never the big guy on campus, sort of say, whenever those. So it's always just being humble and, giving up to God.
Yeah. So I got a question, and I'm going to ask both of you. I'm going to start with Kennedy because I think he's got the longest perspective on this. And that's the way the game has changed over the years. Kennedy, when you show up to USC, I think you show up the year after Marcus Allen won the Heisman Trophy, right?
Right.
This, and that was only a couple years after Charlie White had won it. This is the heyday of I formation, student body left, student body right, just beat on people, right? That was a style of offense. We're just going to beat on you. And a big part of that was a fullback like you, who was a battering ram, running that ISO play where you're taking on the linebacker, the A gap. I mean, this was the style of football, and we've seen a pretty dramatic change over the years, such that there are very few fullbacks in the NFL now. You've been a part of this because both as a player and a coach, you've seen this entire development. I'm curious, somebody with your background who must love physical running football game, what do you make of these changes in the game? Do you like them? Do you not like them? What do you think?
You know what? The most interesting is I can only talk about my experience. Isaiah will tell you that we still have a fullback at Las Vegas Raiders. We run the ball downhill. We control the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And I was blessed to have that at Jacksonville when I coached. We had fullback Greg Jones, played 10 years. And I was blessed at Minnesota to have a rushing attack with C.J. Ham that's playing fullback. And now we have Jakob Johnson. So I've been blessed. And then I've also been where there was no fullback, and the tempo and the fast snap and control, throw the ball all over the field, but control it with the RPOs and things like that.
Yeah.
I think it's just whatever philosophy that the head coach comes in and the culture that he builds, and then everybody buys in, and then you go. Pete Carroll, he came in and said, we're gonna run the football. We're going to control the line of scrimmage. We're going to play good defense with really good special teams. And I can tell you was his philosophy. You go back to the Heisman Trophy winners of Carson Palmer and Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush and Pete Carroll's era. I don't think we're in the shotgun more than 50% compared to now. It's almost 90% shotgun.
Yeah.
They're even kneeling in shotgun. But that's a philosophy, and whatever that head coach, his culture, and he's what he needs to do to help build his culture and a winning culture. I'm all for it. If he wants to be in the shotgun, 5 wide receivers, no running backs, that's his philosophy. We're going to support that, and those are head coach. But then you go down to other places, they might say, hey, we're going to play defense, special teams, and run the football. It all depends on what that head coach is. And you have to buy the fan base and the alumni. They have to buy in. Whoever that head coach is, let's support that head coach, what he wants to do. Because his vision and his staff, they work their ass off. It's a tough deal. Because I believe culture is a very sensitive, fragile. It's not that easy. You can go to any level, building a culture of believing and winning and doing it your way. It took it. I go back to Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll had us from the support staff to the football staff to everybody was on the same page. I laugh because uh, he had I still remember that Lou Tice, I think he passed away, but he was about positive thinking. Lou Tyson came and spoke to the staff, spoke to the support staff, spoke to the strength staff, spoke to and it was just the same message. We are going to win the national championship. We are going to beat UCLA, Notre Dame, and play in the Rose Bowl. And he actually, Isaiah laughed, but he said it's a little tape, a little cassette tape that you can hear him say, and you believe, and that's your culture.
Isaiah is too young to know what a cassette tape is. That's for old guys like us.
Yeah, that's you build your culture. Yeah, it's the same way in the NFL. The head coach, how he wants to come and build that, and it's so fragile that culture. But when it hits, oh, it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. It is a feeling of pride and joy, and that's what I give these men that lead programs, especially like USC. I give them all my support because it is so fragile, and you want them. If he wants to get an I formation, if he wants to get 5 wide receiver, 4 wide receiver, whatever he wants to help, that he sees the vision of winning, and helping them be the best men they can be. To me, that's all for it. And I know Troy will talk to you later about it, but I remember Troy was on the baseball team in Gillespie. Paul Hackett just got fired. I was on the Hackett staff, and I'm trying to, I'm like, hey, I want to stay on with my nephew and watch him grow. And we watched film, and Pete Carroll laid out every player, had a cut up of every person. He wanted to evaluate his whole roster. And that was one of his strengths, was evaluating and going through and, hey, this is what we have. We guarantee that we have 50, 60 players. Let's make sure that we put those 50, 60s in the right spot.
Yeah.
Troy's on the baseball team and Gillespie was part of the reason why he's there. And my older brother, Salu, who helped raise Troy, wanted him to play baseball. Well, Pete Carroll looks at me and said, this guy's stiff. This guy, I don't know if he's any good. And I'm going, well, coach, that's my nephew, and he's on the baseball field. Well, I think he should be on, he should be out for spring football so I can evaluate him. But that was part of him building that up and being the culture of respect and that Polynesian. Instead of saying, well, hell with you, I'm going to play baseball. He went and said, okay, Uncle, I'm going to go out there and prove him. And he did. The rest is history.
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned it sounds funny now to have somebody say, I'm not sure this Troy Polamalu kid could even play, right? Because we all know what happened and the player he became. But I suppose that brings up, if you watch the games on Saturdays, you watch the games on Sundays, you see these guys who are extraordinary at what they do. You don't have a sense of just how much work goes into it, right? I mean, it's not Troy Polamalu wasn't born a Hall of Famer. Isaiah, you weren't born an NFL player. Kennedy, you weren't born what you became. The reality is you have to work at it. Isaiah, give me some sense, because I think we were talking just before this started about how the NFL is a business and how seriously people take it. But give people a sense of just how hard these guys work and just what kind of effort it takes to play at that level.
Oh yeah, I mean, just to speak on like during the season, like it's guys that are working out to make the team. Guys at your position every day. They're coming in every day just to take your spot. And for me last year, especially going undrafted, I was big on just proving myself every day. Every day I got to come in the building, I got to clock in, and it was definitely hard. It was tough. Going undrafted is probably the hardest route, other than trying out. That's the hardest route to make it, and Unc would help me out every day. Just do the extra things, and that's exactly what I did. After practice, I'm working out with Duron Harmon, one of the vets we had last year, and he's just getting any little tip that I can, in the back pedal, whether it's breaking on the ball this way or just doing all the little extra things to give me an advantage to just make the team, honestly. So a lot of work goes into it, whether it's studying the film a little bit more, or doing a couple extra reps in the workout, or just even when you're not on the field, you got to take all the mental reps. It's a lot goes into it.
Yep.
Most people only see Sundays or Saturdays, but it's a whole week process.
Yeah. So Kennedy, you've been in a position as a college coach where you're trying to figure out who you want to recruit and trying to project what kind of college player they'll be. Obviously, you do that now when it comes to at the NFL. You're looking at these college players, trying to figure out who's going to be a success in the NFL. I mean, you can figure out how big a guy is. You can probably test their speed. You can do this. How do you go about figuring out who's the guy who's going to be willing to put in that work that requires to be great, rather than just trying to cruise on their athletic ability and become half or a quarter of what you're capable of? How do you figure that out?
It's a long process. It's a long process, and it's experience, and a lot of it is just like your family. Watching your brother, watching your uncle, watching your aunt, watching your sister. Those are all part of it. And you see the patterns. Examples I can give you is, Ryan Khalil, one of my favorite recruits. He was a left tackle at Servite High School, undersized to be a tackle, but undersized to be a center. So one of the things of evaluating him was moving him to center. And then convincing Coach Carroll and for him to buy in that this young man can play center in this league, and he ended up playing 12 years in the NFL.
Yeah.
And the reason why is we went to the home visit. I went to, and don't put it, this is really part of the fact, because the reason why I'm telling you this story is because his teammate was Jackie Slater, who has been the more Pro Bowls than his father, as the special teams. And Slater was a 10, 5, 700-meter champion at 157 at Servite High School, teammate of Ryan. And he goes to UCLA, and now he's with the Patriots doing all that and being a part of a culture that's won wins. But at that time, my vision was Ryan Khalil. I did not see Slater as a Division I player, and because he's 165 pounds, I think. But Jackie was working with Ryan on his pass pro technique, because Ryan's dad was also a Pac-12 player out of Arizona, or Pac-10, Pac-8, whatever, whatever the conference, the way it goes. But his father was a lineman. But then I met an 8th grader, his brother, who was about 6'5", Matt Khalil, later. So as you go through the evaluation process, there's stories that go on. And then convincing Coach Carroll, that was the fun thing about Coach Carroll. If you believed in someone, he challenged you. And he challenged you for that evaluation, instead of just, you know what, he's da-da-da. No, coach, he's not a 5-star. But he can help us win a championship. My other story about recruiting and evaluation was Matt Grudegood. Matt Grudegood was one of my best recruits, not under Pete Carroll. It was under Paul Hackett.
Yeah.
And Matt Grudegood was one of the best all around, running back, safety, but he wasn't 6'1". He was 5'9", 5'10", like Troy. Was heavily recruited because of Mater Dei, but he wasn't a 4'5", 4'4". But the one thing that I knew, and I kept convincing Coach Hackett and then Coach Carroll, is this son of a gun is a football player.
Yeah.
I don't know how great of a pro he'll be, but I know one thing: he'll help us win championships here at USC.
Yeah.
And now it's the funny thing, because he went from 46, his freshman jersey. This is a side note. I'm giving you a little insights here. He went from number 46 to number 6. That was his number at Mater Dei. And Coach Carroll is now the new head coach. Why am I giving this guy a single digit? Because one of the things I try to tell Coach Carroll is that the one thing when you recruit in college is you don't give away your single digit numbers.
Yeah.
Because that is a big thing in high school recruiting. These kids want single digit numbers. And if you promise it to someone else, I promise you they'll hear about it. And if they share the same number, they're going to hear that you already gave that single digit away.
Yeah.
Well, we promised Matt Grudigan number 6. And he looked at me and said, "You told me," he goes, "this kid had mono his freshman year, didn't play." I said, "Coach, watch. And then he became one of our leading tacklers, led us to a couple big, championships. And I know he didn't have the NFL career that everyone else, but at the USC Trojan, he's one of the best defensive players ever played or laced it up for USC. So
he may also have been the best high school football player I've ever seen.
Thank you. And that's
unbelievable. Yeah.
But he didn't have the measurables of the combine. He was a good, really, really good football player. That's what I enjoyed recruiting for Coach Carroll. He challenged you. What do you mean? You're going to take, and my next guy that I'll tell you about is Reggie Bush. He did not, he's like, "Hold on, Kenny. This guy runs out of bounds. He does this." I go, "Coach, he's got a broken wrist." And his focus was on Maurice Jones-Drew, and he'll tell you that. And he
was pretty good too.
He was pretty good too. But I wanted Reggie Bush, and I love Maurice. I ended up drafting and coaching him in the NFL at Jacksonville. But I believe Reggie Bush was that type of electric football player. I'm just glad that Coach Willingham went to Notre Dame, because if he was at Stanford, Reggie Bush would have went to Stanford. So I'm giving you all these insights. But as you go through the evaluation, the same thing with Isaiah. Isaiah could have went to a lot of schools. I was coaching at the other campus at the time.
I remember. I'm trying to forgive you for that.
I was coaching, but I was hoping that and then when he made his decision to go to USC, I'm going to support it. And I'm going to support wherever he wants to go. Yeah. I mean, we have he has a cousin that's at Nebraska. We have all over. And his brother went to Kansas State. And believe me, I'm going to support my family. That evaluation is very important. Not everyone can come to USC and succeed. It is a very difficult environment. You have to be a really, really strong belief in yourself. And you got to have some strong family support, because you can go astray in LA, in any campus, but LA, you can go anywhere. And that's why I believe in the evaluation, it's about being in their home. That's what was so important, to see their support. And then if you see that they don't have that support, you're just like, I don't know if they're going to make it here. I don't know if they're going to make it here. And that's because I lived it. I've seen it. I've seen some of my best teammates who are, could have been future Hall of Famers. But it just, if you don't have that family support and hard time, And I struggled at times. Isaiah probably did. Troy did. It's just, you got to just find a way, and people find faith, find family, find relationships, I'm still good friends with a lot of people that I went to college there because I could have easily went a different direction.
So much interesting stuff there. You told some good stories with Troy and Ryan Khalil and Matt Grudegood. I'll give you another one. I think Mike Patterson is a guy that that Pete Carroll had to be convinced to recruit, right? Because he was short and fat. He didn't. I mean, he was, but so what's interesting is when you're talking about Pete Carroll, you're talking about one of the greats, college coach, pro coach, an unbelievable football coach. But even then, he's looking at some guys, and it's hard for him to project. I think that shows just how difficult it is sometimes to figure out who's great. And right now there's a lot of chatter about recruiting and USC, and the fans get upset because a guy goes somewhere else. They think the coach has made a mistake. They should have recruited this guy harder. The reality is, as a fan, it's virtually impossible to be able to distinguish between these guys and say that guy has what it takes to be a star. Because even for the coaches, it's hard, right?
And it's hard in the NFL level as well.
Yeah. And in fact, Isaiah, you've sort of recently been on the opposite end of that, right? You were a very good player at USC, but you don't get drafted, and so you walk into an NFL training camp trying to prove to the coaches there that I can play at this level. I'm the guy you want. There are always a ton of guys that want that job, right? So there's real competition for that. Tell me about what that's like to be on the other end of that, where you go from being a team captain and an all-conference guy and a very good player to now all of a sudden you're like the walk-on, right? Where you have to really convince people. Tell me what your mindset was when you went into that, and how it all turned out so well for you, where you make a roster and you're playing in the league.
Yeah. So it actually all started my last year of college. That was statistically that was my worst year. And coming off of that, it messed with my mind a little bit. I'll say that. But then, just like my uncle said, having that confidence in yourself and then having that family behind you, I think that's what brought me back to, kind of grounded me and just allowed me to get back to myself. And, I went back home to Arizona, went to work out, ended up making the team. And with that, I think it was just the confidence in myself and the help from my family. I talk to them a lot just about, every day, just talking about what I'm going through and, how hard it is. They just constantly remind me like it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. And, just to take advantage of every day that I'm in there. And that's kind of just what I did. And, told the coaches what I was able to do, and they started to trust me more. And, they started giving me some packages here and there. And I was able to help the team last year a little bit.
Yeah. One of the things that's interesting to me about this is that that hard work, that effort, you never know how long an NFL career is going to last, right? I mean, even if you're Tom Brady, you're still leaving when you're less than halfway done with your life, like you hope, right? And so, but the thing that strikes me is that what you're talking about is what I'm trying to sell to my 17-year-old son. He is not going to play in the NFL, but convince him that, look, the work that you put, learning to sacrifice, learning to work hard, even if you don't know what the result is going to be, is going to pay off dividends for the next 50, 60, 70 years. I'm curious what you guys think about that, whether the lessons that you've learned from playing football, from coaching and watching other people play, whether these lessons are lessons that you think apply in other areas of your life. And if so, how?
100%. 100%. I went and watched the flag, little 6th, 7th grade flag football today. And I was frustrated when I came out of there, and the parents were like, "Oh, what do you think? What do you think?" I'm like, "It was okay." And they're like, why was it okay? Because they didn't strain. They didn't try. They didn't. He goes, well, they're not that, they don't know how to do that. I go, well, that's something that's you learn. You
Yeah.
learn, you learn to put in the extra work. You learn to strain. You learn what the intent is, and that has nothing to do with you running fast, you jumping higher. It's just that effort you put into it. And
Yeah.
same in coaching. Yeah, if I don't put the extra effort of maybe, hey, I'm gonna see that defensive pattern one more time. Hey, why did that guy do that? Why is his hands off his knees when he blitz? Oh, there he is. There's a sign. There's an indicator. Isaiah knows here with the Raiders. It's just we talk about everything about giving away. Why are you giving that away? Give indicators, this and that.
Yeah.
That is those are habits, routine. We talk about, and when Troy talks to you, he'll talk to you about Marv Marinovich. Marv was, if you want to be great, he didn't accept any excuses.
Yeah.
He did not accept any excuses, and that's what I believe. Watching Isaiah, heck, Troy and I recruited him, but he could have went anywhere else. I just felt he comes to the Raiders. I'm closer there. I have an understanding that if he has to put more effort in, focus more, do something, eliminate the distractions. And I was so damn glad when he decided to come here because I can help him.
Yeah.
I couldn't help him if he went somewhere else.
Yeah.
So, but he could have went somewhere else. So I put Troy on the phone. We went after him. And Isaiah will tell you, I put the whole family on him. Right, Isaiah?
Yeah, he definitely did. And I'll touch real quick. My dad actually told me when I was a little kid and I was playing little league, and we after the games we all used to just go behind the stadium and like play another game, like tackle football, just all the little kids. And my dad used to tell me like, why do you have so much energy after the game? Like during the game, after the game, they should have to carry you off the field. Like you should have no energy left, and that's something that I carry with myself. Like just touching on the effort part, like you have to be able to strain, just like my uncle said, like give that type of effort to where they have to be able to carry you off the field. You can't walk, you can't do anything after a game. That's the type of effort you should play with. So that's just something that I kind of carried with me.
Yeah, that's good stuff. It's funny. Everybody can understand how football benefits Troy Polamalu or Carson Palmer or Caleb Williams, right? That's obvious because they're huge stars. They make a lot of money. Fine. What I think a lot of people don't realize is how it benefits the guys that sit on the bench, the guys that play high school football and never get recruited to USC, right? I mean, I played small college football where nobody cared. Nobody came to watch our games and we weren't any good. It didn't matter. The truth is, I learned more in that 4 years that I've been able to apply in my life than probably anything else I've ever done. I mean, it's just that it's that formative an experience. And so I love to hear the talk about straining and working because look, ultimately, whatever you do with your life long term, you got to know how to do that or you're not going to be any good at it.
Exactly. That's in everything. Your relationship, your relationship with your children, your relationship with your spouse, everything. If you don't put the effort into it, you're not going to get the results that you want. It's not going to naturally just happen. You got to put it in there.
Let me ask you. You said earlier on you were talking about culture and how it's not easy, it's fragile. I assume that this hard work we're talking about is one part of culture, but I'm going to ask you both. There's been a lot of talk at USC about Lincoln Riley changing the culture, and every time a successful coach goes to a new program, that's what everybody talks about. So I want to get both of your thoughts. What does it mean to have a successful culture? What do you have to have? What do the people have to believe? And how do you build that and keep it?
Well, to me, sacrifice, discipline, selfless, and caring. It they use the word family all the time. Family is blood. In sports, it's about sacrifice. It's about giving it up. Junior Seau had a saying, buddy. He called everybody buddy. God rest his soul. But buddy, I would say, Junior, out of all your years, Junebug, I mean, what lesson can you take away from playing American football, high school, college, NFL? And he's been some of the greatest coaches, from all the coaches and experience and Hall of Fame talent that he played with. And he said the number one thing that he would take away from playing football is doing it for your buddy. Doing it for your buddy. Because that's the most special thing in football.
Yeah.
Doing it for your buddy. And when you have a culture where they do it for each other, because you hear it in every sport. After every Super Bowl, every NBA, every baseball, oh man, these are the greatest guys. I would take these guys. I just had such a good. It's doing it for your buddy, and that's coaches doing it for their buddies. When you see the coaches hug after winning the Super Bowl, you see their teammates, and then here I am at Troy's Hall of Fame in Canton. His teammates there, coaches. It's just like that's. I get it, Junebug. I get it.
Yeah. Isaiah, you're still right in the middle of it in terms of your playing career, and only a few years past your time at USC. But let's focus on your time at USC. What are your takeaways? Like if somebody were to ask you, in fact, I am asking you, what's the biggest thing or the two biggest things you take away from your time at USC? What do you tell me?
The two biggest things. Well, when I think about the two funnest and most exciting times of my times in SC, I think about we had days, after our summer workouts and stuff and our spring practices, we'd have days where we would just, go to one of the I forget, one of the dorms. They had a pool area and a grill area, and it'd probably be like half the team in there. We're all just cooking it up and jumping in the pool, music blasting. It was just good times, everybody just, with each other, just enjoying each other's company. And I think that kind of touches on what my uncle was was saying as well, just doing it for your buddy and just being together and caring for one another. I think that definitely helped us win games, just because when it came down to it and we're in the fight and we need big plays, we didn't look to the coaches, we didn't look to the fans, we didn't look to anybody but the people that were with us, the guys with the same color jerseys as us. And that's something that, just I'll never forget, honestly. And one of my roommate, I remember we're playing UCLA the COVID year. We're in a dogfight and we're at halftime, and he comes over to me. He's looking to me to make a play. He's looking to, the defense to help him out, and we go out there and we stop them. Next time offense hits the field, we score and end up winning the game. But it's just moments like that I think of. Like, I don't think of all the times where, we're losing or doing anything like that. I think of the good times of when I look to the left and the right and I see my brothers with me and we're just in it,
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the things I take away the most, just being with my brothers.
Yeah, I like that. And so both of you guys, you played at a time at USC where you had good moments and bad moments, right? It wasn't Matt Leinart winning every single game, right? I mean, this was, Kennedy. You had the I'll go back to, I mentioned at the beginning, but that 1984 team, I moved back to Southern California in 1984. And so that was the first time I'd seen a game at the Coliseum. I saw USC LSU. We're not going to talk about that one. The second game I ever saw was USC against #1 ranked Washington at the Coliseum. And I still remember, I was 11 years old. I remember Washington drives right down the field to their first possession. They punch it in. I think, oh no, this is not good. And USC really dominates the rest of the way, wins that game against the #1 team in the country. You guys go on to beat Ohio State in the Rose Bowl with a really good Ohio State team, also a great fullback for Ohio State. And so you have those great moments, but you also had the 4-win season while you were there. I mean, and so I suspect you learned a whole lot from both. What are your takeaways? What do you take with you now, all these years later, about your time at USC?
All that time, what I've learned is, we say every time we see each other, Trojans, we say fight on. I've learned that you got to fight on. And I also learned that it's not all about the great things. I got to Ted Toner is one of the greatest men. He was my head coach, and still today.
Yeah,
He's a great human being. You look at that staff that won that Rose Bowl in '84. You had the D-line coach was Dave Wanstead, who's been a head coach. Norv Turner, who's been a head coach and Super Bowl coordinator for Dallas. You had, he left to go to the Rams, and Hudson Houck, who recruited me, Marv Goo. And then you had Pat, the O-line coach. He coached in the NFL for forever. It's just slipping my mind. But it just goes on and on about these great men that try to help and get us some winning. And we didn't win, but then we did win. But the one thing I know is you fight on and you don't give up. Don't let them change the person that you are. And I go back now and I just see the stress that a lot of coaches had to go through now that I'm in that line of work. But the one thing that I've learned is that the men that fought on, they didn't get distracted. They stayed, they believed in who they are, and they stay with the character. And it just, to me, Ted Toner is one of the greatest men, and I'm just damn glad I got to meet him at USC.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're about out of time. I'm going to listen, Kennedy, I'm going to ask you a question. You're not going to want me to ask this question, but I have to do it because if I don't ask it, everybody I talk to when this is over is going to say you didn't ask it. All right. Do you know what I'm going to ask you? Do you have any idea? There's a rumor.
Didn't do it. Believe me.
Okay. So
if this would have happened, it would have been a lot more damage. So right. You already answered it for you.
Okay. I'll fill in the viewers. I think almost every viewer knows what I was going to ask. I'll fill them in. The rumor was, and it was never confirmed by anybody, that before the Sun Bowl, there was an altercation between you and Lane Kiffin. You punched Lane Kiffin in the face, and that's why he had to wear the glasses to cover up his face. You're telling us absolutely positively never happened.
Never happened. Never. I know. I laughed. We talked about it the other day. Somebody they came out with the truth, and it's out there, but I did not. I'm not, believe me, I have more respect for Lane than to disrespect him like that.
Hey, he's had a nice renaissance to his career too. Lane's doing a nice job.
He's a good coach. He understands it. He knows like a head coach. He knows what he wants, and then get everybody to buy into your culture and what you want to do. And to me, that's all you can do when you're the leader. Get them all to buy in. That's why Pete Carroll had that I'm in, his little sign. I just watched that Lasso show.
Yeah.
Apple, and they had their Believe sign. Well, SC with Pete Carroll, as we had the sign that every time you walked into Coliseum floor or to the practice field. You had to tap, and it was like, I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. So every head coach that I don't envy it's a tough job.
Yeah.
So all us Trojans need to support Coach Riley and what he's doing.
So let's end with this. Let's talk about what Coach Riley is doing, and let's start with you, Isaiah. What do you expect from Lincoln Riley's program over the next few years? What do you think is going to happen?
I definitely have big hopes. Chris, me and you were talking a little bit before. You know, they picked up some key guys in the transfer portal on defense and offense, and you know, especially with Caleb Williams at the helm, it's bright future right now.
Yeah. What do you think, Kennedy? Are we headed back towards the glory days of USC now?
I'm not going to predict, but I went to that Utah, Pac-12 champion. Isaiah and I were there. It felt I was there pregame on the sideline. I'm telling you, it felt back in those 2000. It felt like that. So and remember, people don't forget, we were in the damn Vegas Bowl before we won the Orange Bowl.
That's right.
And,
against Utah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to get those opportunities and those, but that feeling, there's nothing. I'm selfish. The nation needs the Trojans.
Yeah.
In that conversation every year, and I believe I'm supporting them, and I'm expecting big things. Well, I'm not gonna, we're not allowed to gamble in the NFL, so I'm glad I don't have to. So my money's on the Trojans. I don't have to bet on it, but it's on the Trojans.
Yeah, good. Hey guys, I appreciate it. This was great. Thank you both for joining me, and I know everybody's going to be excited to hear what you have to say. Good luck this year. Win a bunch of games.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Isaiah. Love you.
Yep. Thank you. Love you too.